to start in that place. Because look, the moment someone starts to demonstrate a symptom, whatever it is, the least symptom to the greatest symptom, is the moment that their body said, detox isn't working, I can't drain it out, nothing's moving, and all I'm doing is getting congested. That's the moment a symptom starts.
Hello, and welcome to the Energy Flow podcast. I'm Kelly Kennedy, and I am here to discuss all things energy, fascia, lymphatics, oxygen, and water. Over my 26 years of being on this journey and 19 years in clinical practice, dealing with chronically ill, chronically pained, to the optimizing of health and to everything in between, we have learned throughout these years how to efficiently and effectively teach people how the body works, get them engaged in that system, help them understand how the universe works and how those two connect. And that's what this Energy Flow podcast is about. Whether you are new to us or you've been a longtime listener of over 4 years now, we are so happy and honored to share our heart's honest truth about what we know, what has worked for us, what's worked in the clinical practice, and what might be the key to your next step in your journey. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing this with all that it will resonate with. We look forward to each and every moment of our genuine connection. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the Energy Flow with Kelly Kennedy and Dr. Lisa Holt, and I am truly honored to share this space and time today. We've rearranged our schedules around weather and so forth to assure that we have crystal clear communication, because for me, as I set the attention and focus for this podcast today, let me be very clear to say that this is a foundational concept that I'm truly honored to have Dr. Lisa sharing with us today, with her slide decks, with her mountains of information that we're going to try to spoon feed little bullet points of trickles to allow you to follow the path to understand the key to understanding how the body really does work from a physiological level, on a physiological level, which is the framework from which we have always come from at True Wellness. And as we say at the True Wellness Center, held in the science of energy, we are here to do a deep dive into that today, into homotoxicology. And we ask you to sit back, take a breath with us. Maybe pause for a second, grab a cup of tea, grab a notebook, grab a pen. I guarantee you're going to have resources and questions and all sorts of things that show up. And we just ask that today we stay in our hearts, we stay present to the fact that no matter what and where we are today, that we're just here to close the gaps to get closer and closer to our next version of our highest and best version of ourselves. That we are here to remain in our core values, to always remain in curiosity over judgment as one of the main ones, and to remember that we always come from love, and that while today we're going to get really heady and brainy and really deep into the brain of all of it and the physiology of it, remember that the only thing that heals is inside of us. And this is a window and a picture into that framework from a different lens from our beautiful Dr. Lisa, who I just got to meet, I don't know, in the last few months. And as we've conversed, it's been like two kids that just met each other and just wanted to never get off the swing set. We just wanted to swing forever and just talk about all the things. And I'm really excited about this conversation. So I welcome you, Dr. Lisa. I welcome you all, you listeners of the Energy Flow podcast. Thank you for your loyalty. Please hit share and like and all the things that help us move forward. Silas would be very upset at how I did that, but you know what to do. Please do it. It really helps. Any comments, all that really helps push forward our agenda, which is to get the information out about how simple and easy this really is and how it really works. So with that, Dr. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Kelly, thank you so much. I am so honored to be here with you. And you're right. When we first started speaking, I just didn't want to let you go. There's so many amazing, beautiful pieces that are coming together and coalescing in our world these days. Our conversations are finally opening up. We're finding each other to truly put this work into practice and take it forward. Those of us who've been in this business for a long time and we have held the space and held the space, and we are finally moving toward a new opening. Goodness, Pluto into Aquarius, here we go. Hang on, hang on to your seat. And we're all excited because this truly is a time that we really get to stand in our truth and show up and teach others so that we can really make this difference. Thank you very much for having me on today. You honor me in that way.
Oh, well, it was truly wonderful to me in medical doctor. And Dr. Lisa does a lot of education for Desk Bio, so I'm sure we're going to be talking about that company today,
Yeah.
which we'll dive into what they do and so forth. But tell us a little bit about your background, if you would, so everybody can get a frame of reference. As I love to give people frames, right? I thought I was into photography, but in a different way. About who you are and where you come from and why you got here in regards to bio wellness, which is a new term I decided today that I'm going to start to use.
Bio wellness, that's a really nice term. I've been using the term bioregulatory because it encompasses
Me too.
every method,
Yeah,
right?
me too.
Not one thing is the end all be all, not one discipline, not one way. Like that is the beauty of where we are, uniquely individual, because each of us have our own journey, our own healing, our own trauma, as my son says, his own, personal path. So just really quick, I've been in healthcare for about 34 years. I began my career as a registered nurse and I worked many years as an oncology nurse, which that's a cancer specialist. I worked for Vanderbilt University. I worked for Moffitt Cancer Center. And so actually, what I kind of always knew it was my first step in going somewhere, right? Nursing school. I came from a small town. That was really the only opportunity that I had at the time. But as I worked as a nurse and became familiar, and I moved several times and really got the opportunity to, for instance, go into heart math and healing touch, as a nurse, and the herbal nursing program. And then I really started getting exposed. Well, there was one moment where I was working with a patient in the hospital, and all of a sudden, it really hit me what my path was supposed to be. So I continued in my education, um, went on into Chinese medicine. And I always say to the practitioners that I work with Desbio, our language is unlike any other language. Our Chinese medicine education has really done a good job at teaching us things to look for on not only this third, but the fifth and seventh and ninth and 11th and 13th and 21st dimensions. And that's really how we see our patients. And so we can not only see their physical demonstration of their symptom profiles and what they're going through, but we understand that on an organic level. We understand it on a cellular level. We understand it on an electrical level and a voltage level, right? And the etheric level, right? And out in through the very reasons that we as three-dimensional human beings are here having this experience. And that is how the gift of being a provider really comes into play when we're talking about doing our work with our people, right? So that's what I do.
I mean, if you don't, excuse me, if you don't understand why I love her so much, you now do.
Thank you. So, on a more practical level, I've been in Colorado about 4 years. I had a very large, thriving practice in Tennessee, where I'm from, and I met my sweetheart, and he convinced me to come out here. So, I've been here about 4 years, still getting used to the weather. Kelly and I were talking about that just last week. We had a ton of snow. Winter is upon us, but here we are. It's always a gift to be where we are. I do have a private practice for many, many years, about 15, 17 years, in Tennessee. We had a very large Lyme and co-infection practice. We
Is
were,
a naturopath?
I'm a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine,
There you go. DOI.
and I have been through naturopathic training, and I also have an MBA. And so, we do all kinds of things, especially education. That is a place where we have focused for so long, right? Because if our patients don't understand what we're asking them to do, it's difficult for them to make the commitment to buy into their own healing paradigm, right? So we educate a ton so that when we do ask them to do something, they at least understand why we're asking them to do it and what that benefit looks like to them. And so once I moved to Colorado, it took me a little bit to understand, the culture out here. And Lyme doesn't seem so big out here until people start coming out of the woodwork and finding you, right? And really, people are suffering with chronic, pathological, inflammatory, like everything tends these days to be built around that kind of clinical profile. And that's just kind of the mid-level. The foundational level was already digestive and organ and, system. Those were already evident. And now we have this complexity kind of on top of that. So, we're seeing things in levels. What it did teach me all of those years was what I call pathological consciousness. So when we're looking at all of these bacterial infections and viral infections and parasitic all of these pathogens that cohabitate us as a human organism. On the one hand, we thrive because of cohabitation with pathogens that are commensal pathogens. They're healthy for us, right? They're pathogens and bacteria who help us create vitamins in the gut lining and vitamin D and, all kinds of things like that. It helps us to create a good epithelial tissue layer in the stomach and, those types of things. However, when they're out of balance, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is the ecosystem. Thank you.
Yes,
That we talk about. We're like,
yes,
this is, we are an organism of an
yes.
ecosystem that is interplaying and interacting with all the ecosystem around us, foreseen and unforeseen, whether we have a microscope and dive deep into looking at live blood or we don't, or
Right.
we have special spectroscopes that look at the air and what's actually flying through the air, or we can, all these different ways that we can calculate the seen and unforeseen
Right.
parts of us that
Yeah.
are working all together as an organism that's interplaying again on a 3D level and a 5D level with all of life. I can see why you and Dr. James Odell, I'm sure, are real good.
Yes. Yes. And that is such a great point, Kelly, to bring that forward because everything has consciousness. Even the bacteria inside of us have a consciousness, and they bring that vibration to us as our own three-dimensional organism, and everything ripples throughout this field. Whatever's inside of me creates my field, right? And you to yours, and her to hers. And so, because of that, it all has consciousness. Further, the reality that we are experiencing comes from that emanation, and it's multi-leveled. Okay. And so I know you had asked me about what I do, and here we are kind of talking about this, but this has truly been a driving factor in my practice for so long because at the end of the day, we are big sacks of biochemistry, and we're the most significant spiritual being. And we have to balance all of that and walk, in that balance. And it feels as if when someone does come into our clinic and they're seeking help and they're seeking information and they're seeking education, that's where we do our best work right there, is to help people understand, what's underneath it all. That,
And the bridge. I would say it's not
yes,
just the root cause, but the bridge between the 5D and the 3D, because I think that's, for me, one of the struggles I see in humanity is, as you say so elegantly, we are becoming we are these spiritual beings, and we
yeah,
have to have this balance between the organism and the pathophysiology and the spirituality. And that right now is the challenge. And my
right,
question is, how well are you doing? And the answer is heart rate variability will tell you how you're doing, because that's the
right,
best indicator. I mean, never is one test perfect, but testing
right,
your regulation in
right.
all sorts of ways, ideally starting its baseline with HRV, to look at how well am I doing in
Mhm.
bringing those two worlds together, and regardless of the pressure I'm up against, right? And the
Right.
pressure that we're up against is pretty great. I mean, you mentioned, I love you that you started this off with Pluto into Aquarian, because I don't know if
It's
you remember,
huge.
it was a big day for me. It's the day I
Yes,
broke my elbow this year, and my
yes,
50th year, and the day it went back into Pluto, back in the Aquarian just a
yeah,
few days ago. I was really happy when the day was over. I was like, hey, this time I did it. I can put my arms up over my head and it's all good. But it is big. It's a huge thing. And I really feel such a shift since that happened, that, like you said earlier, what we've been saying for 2 decades is now becoming commonplace. And thank God for COVID, honestly, y'all, because it allowed
yes.
scab to be picked that we saw there to now allow the avalanche of information. And that said, which was my point to this, was when a client comes in, we are the root cause understanding, but we're also the bridge between, well, wait, I've learned this whole other form of functional medicine, and now you're asking me to understand bioregulatory medicine. And what is this now that I'm taking in? And it is a lot, because what you just said, like, you're taking in 27 dimensions, the 5 elements, the 5 bodies, the 3 brains, like bioregulatory medicine. It's not just one way. I love how you said that. It's not just one way. It's all the ways.
Yes,
And
yes,
don't get overwhelmed when you start to look down this rabbit hole, because it's a deep one. Go to brmi.online, which she
yeah.
has in her resources, which is all over my website. Dr. James O'Dell, that I just referred to. Great podcast. Listen to that as well. How self-healing podcast. It because it's a whole, it's a rabbit hole. It's a whole bunch of new information. And yet, when you get over a certain point, everything starts to make sense in your entire life, and you start to go, oh my God, I understand every symptom, every illness, every injury, everything that's ever happened to me. And now I can control it, and I can now drive this instead of being the victim and the passenger. I can drive this, and I can bring it all together, and I can be in charge of my own energy flow, and I can self-care over healthcare, and I am in complete freedom and sovereignty. And welcome to the new world of Aquarian.
Woo woo! I am down with that. You're so right. It truly is the point of singularity, right? And that's, our journey this time around is our point of singularity. So beautifully said. Absolutely.
And a little self plug, I just have to right now because I feel it, right? It's like the Flow Forum membership, honestly, folks, that's why we created it, because I know I've put it out there since 2005. I've been putting stuff on YouTube. Like, I've been doing this a long time. Didn't really know what the fuck I was doing until a couple years ago, but we were just like, I just put it out there. But here's the thing, if you want it in an organized way and you want to start to digest this so you don't get overwhelmed and eat an appetizer and then an entree and then a dessert and go back and circle through it, because like on the part 2 of this, Dr. Lisa and I are going to go even deeper into the understandings of a lot of this, because it's important for us that you do begin to understand it, because then you really are free, because then you don't get worried when you have a symptom. You start to understand that the body's communicating to you, and you start to understand what it's communicating to you, and you start to need less and less a practitioner to get you to understand what's happening in your body. Am I wrong?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you want to talk about organization and form, Kelly, because that is it's part of how we help our students and our patients and our classmates understand. We do have to have some architecture around things until we truly can integrate the information on a practical activity level. And so what you're talking about is looking at, there's nothing new under the sun, but there are, different approaches to wellness. There's different approaches to understanding. There's as many approaches as there are stars in the sky for one person to finally find, identify, and resonate with their approach and their path that serves them, right? And our bodies are an extension of that. And so to understand a multitude of ways, all of a sudden, and I know you know this, Kelly, all of a sudden we start to see the similarity in everything. That's the point of singularity. Nothing is separate. Nothing is different. There is, there is a field, and we all meet each other in it. That's a Rumi saying, a Rumi poem, but it's so true, because all of this, when we finally see what the central, resonance and the core of the energetics of all this really is, it's all the same, right? So I
And
know that's a little overwhelming for some people. I don't want that to be, but
well,
just
the 0 point is
remember that.
also is another terminology for the singularity. 0 point is what it's called.
Yeah.
Source. What's another terminology for it? So, and this is language, as you were saying, and a lot of, like with Chinese medicine, it has a lot of wording and a lot of language. Maybe because they've been talking about it for 5,000 years
Right.
and a few hundred.
Right.
That gives some sort of description to something that's completely undescribable.
Right. Yeah.
Because the unknown is very undescribable. And when you look in a microscope, when you are talking about this energy of which
Right.
heals us, most of it's non-visible and
Right. Right.
non-processable in our 3D version. You need something to try to
Right.
discuss it, language it to. Did you feel that? Did I feel that? Was that just me?
Right.
Was that hot? Was that temperature hot? Like, what is that? So there's all sorts of beautiful language of the body. And
Yes.
I've always said up until recently, the last couple of years, oh, I only speak one language, English. And then in the last few
Nope.
years,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's not true. I speak the body
Right.
language. I don't speak sign language. I speak the body language.
Right.
And it's the language that I truly, in my heart of hearts, feel every single human being needs to learn how to speak. Hello, my beautiful listeners and viewers of the Energy Flow podcast. First of all, thank you for your loyal listening and your active engagement in this lovely project known as the Energy Flow podcast. And as you know, we have changed it a little bit in the last few months, and now we have a tier 1 membership and a tier 2 membership, which allows you to go with me deep, fast, like I like to. So in the tier 1, you get to hear the second part of these episodes, so we can go a little bit more involved and say things perhaps we couldn't say on every platform. In the tier 2, you also get to be part of our Q&A, where you get to bring your questions directly to me for me to answer once a month, as well as an organized platform for you to dive into fascia, lymph, energy, water, and oxygen so you can get your energy flow going. Join us on this membership platform for only $23 a month for that investment in yourself, because you know you are worth it. Join me. See ya at the Q&A.
We are living in exciting times, because 100 years ago, we couldn't have this conversation. There was no contrast to this idea, even 100 years ago, even 75 years ago. I think that, I wouldn't say that. There were a lot of people coming along at that point, because, and I'm
Well,
going to say this
75
one
years.
more time, because Pluto did start moving forward.
Yeah.
But
And
We
And
can have the
it's like we're
feminine.
in the 50s. So
Yes.
that was about 70, 80 years ago.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so we can start to speak in the feminine and speak in the flow and speak in the watery and express from that place now where we collectively literally weren't able to when, our era was still vibrating at a more, centric position, right?
And
So,
top down, Capricorn,
right,
top down control
right.
and ruling instead of Aquarian, which is
Yes,
for
exactly.
collaboration and fairness and every enough to go around and abundance and that kind of stuff versus
Yes, exactly. That is one thing that is, and we see it all over the place. Aquarius is really, it's about those ripples of what, on a pond. It's your core, and then it's your community, and then it's their, core, and then and as it ripples out, then it's your state, and then it's your nation, and then it's your country, and then it's, international, and then all of a sudden, no, it's just our Earth, right? And then it's just our solar system, and then it's just our universe, and then it's right, and that is that being in that nature that we're stepping into, and it's a beautiful place to be. So
the microcosm of the macrocosm, right? And
it
like as
is.
an acupuncturist, I think about like how the ears, the hands, the feet are
Yes,
all a hologram for the whole body. And
yes,
this word hologram is so fascinating because we
yes,
are a hologram.
yes,
And
we are.
and so wow,
Wow.
my little tagline, we go deep fast is stick and
Love it.
true.
We did do that.
It goes deep fast. So let's pull it back a little bit. Let's go back to the
Let's do
pathophysiology
it.
part of this, Wreck-A-Wig, and all your
Yes.
beautiful slides you've created. Now they know kind of where the journey's taking them. Let's step back and walk through it a little bit. This is going to be a fun ride.
All right, so can I pull up a few slides? We may
Yes.
not get through everything, but what I do want to provide is a little bit of visualization on exactly what we're talking about. And so, would you like to introduce what uh, homotoxicology is and the disease evolution table? You want me to do that?
Oh, I want, they've heard me.
Okay, you got it. I can do it.
Go for it. You go for it.
So, all right, let me pull my
I
slides
mean,
up.
maybe they haven't. Let me give it. Okay, now that you've asked me, I feel like okay.
Okay, no problem.
Anybody asks me for my opinion, of course I want to give it. Everybody's giggling. Everybody
You
knows
go
they
for
listen to
it.
this podcast. So for me, homotoxicology is the concept that there's layers of processes that occur that the body's never stagnant. It's always in either regeneration or degeneration. And so homotoxicology kind of gives us the chart to help us figure out from a pathophysiological place, not just looking at heart rate variability, but where we are based upon the symptomology that's presented that allows us to know, okay, where's our starting ground? And then how do we weave them out of that through the phases of the delineations that tell you, is this deep into like disease state or is this just functional illness, or is this person just hyper sensitive because their body's actually regulating properly and giving them signs and symptoms of showing them the shit that's fucking them up. That last part was just for all you that thought I was getting too medical.
So that was a beautiful and elegant way to put that out there. And I'm going to get nerdy. You
Good.
have this beautiful way of giving this overview, this global sense of what it is meant for. What's the goal of this practice? People are so unfamiliar with it and they're like, well, where does this even fit? Right? Just remember, it's one pathway, it's one picture, it's one view. Functional medicine is what it is, and allopathic is what it is. And each, discipline has its
I did this
own.
perfectly. It's just having a different set of glasses
That's
on,
right.
looking at it a little
Right.
differently
That's
than
right. The goal is still to help your patient. It's still to help yourself or help your client just understand how to meet them on their journey where they are at a little bit of a different level. it takes all of the ways. We have to fix the gut. We have to sleep. We have to get good nutrition. We have to have good relations. We have to have all of that. There's nothing that goes in place of that. This is just another way to look at it. And so I'm going to share my screen. Here we go.
These are my point 0.5 prescriptions. Since we're looking at the homotoxicology chart, I purposely had these at the ready because I need a
So
different perspective when we look at
I
homotoxicology
love it. I love it.
chart.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelly, please, I want this to be a conversation between the two of us because
Yes.
you
Boom.
are just as deep and understand this in all the ways, right? So please,
Well, and
uh,
just since you have the phase remedies up, so when I learned bioregulatory medicine, biological medicine, terrain
right.
medicine, root cause medicine, all those names basically mean the same. One of the things that I always was taught that when you address a client, you have to address the different phases to make sure that you're hitting not just the symptomology phase, but the root cause phase. And
Mhm.
I don't know how many years ago it was now, but there was these two companies that we used to be able to get in Germany, and we had a lot of import from them, and
Yes.
then, it was cut off like done,
Hmm.
and when we were like what, and I felt like I had my handcuffs on because while I knew a lot about the medicine, I also knew that the remedies facilitated a lot
Yes.
of information to mobilize the different phases in the body. So
Yes.
when Desbios has been like, I've used their kits for years, but I never used the remedies, and it's been kind of on my shoulder, one of those things. And then I interacted, I don't know, about a year ago with the CEO of the company, and I just fell in love, and I started looking at the remedies, and I was like, wait a second, is that a heal remedy? And
Yeah.
he was like, oh yeah, we have all the heal remedies. I was like, wait, what? Why did I not understand that about Desbios? And then I started digging a little deeper. I was like, okay, so we've started to bring the remedies into the practice, starting with the phase remedies,
Awesome.
at least some of them, not all of them. And
Right.
I'm looking, I know we don't have the tonsilla phase, but we need to get that because I did not see that. But we started with the lymph phase, is who's shocked.
Yes.
Um, and then there's another lymph remedy. But, these are remedies that are very precise and very impactful. So I was
Yes.
very happy to have these remedies back. And they're liquids. We all know how much I love liquids.
Yes. Yes.
And we love liquids because we know about gut health. So here we
Right.
So that's why I love Desbios, and that's how I got introduced to Lisa. Actually, Dr.
Yes.
Lisa was through Desbios. So, and then when we saw our education, I'm like, can you be a staple on my flow form? We have so much to talk about, but we first have to do a podcast to let everybody know about what
Yeah.
we're talking about. So here we go.
I love it. And thank you for sharing that because, there is so much history to learn. And I say this all the time. If we're not studying our history, we don't understand where we are in space, in time. And there's so much that has come before us, and we stand on the shoulders of the giants who brought this medicine to us and continue even today to do the research work with it, the anecdotal longevity reviews, the patient care that we are in it day in and day out. And that is what helps us to keep understanding the significance and the expansiveness of our medicine. Now, I wanted to put this phase remedy slide up first because just quickly going back to what you were saying, Kelly, we're going to kind of hit that on the next slide very quickly. And you have to help me keep up with time too, because I can talk about this all day. So just help me kind of keep up with where we are. So, Des Bio is a comprehensive homeopathic formula company in the US market that carries what are called phase remedies. Now, phase remedies are the homeopathic remedies. It's called anti-homotoxic medicine. And the idea for all these remedies were adopted from what are called Reykjavik compositums. Now, H. Reykjavik was a medical doctor back in the early 50s studying He studied Chinese medicine. He studied traditional medicine. He was studying biochemistry. He was studying hormonal therapy, the immune system. He was kind of in a place where his career was getting impacted and changed by the new information that led him to understanding the validation of micro concentrations and nano concentrations of very specific types of solutions. And
Highly
he,
dilutable, barely have anything in it from a molecular level,
that's correct.
vibrationally is all that's left essentially, and yet different dilutions combined together instead of classic
Right,
homeopathy, which is 10x only, 30C only.
right,
Homotoxicology is take a glandular, let's say, of a tonsil and give
right.
me 12x, 6x, 100C, 200C, blah, blah, blah. So whatever dilution, okay, keep going. Now they're
Right. Yes. And again, there's so much to this conversation. It's so layered. There's no way we're ever going to
keep
hit
going,
everything.
keep going. It's okay.
But you're
Stop saying
exactly
how much it is. They know that. Now we're going to keep going.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So complex homeopathy combines a number of different plants, mineral salts, imponderables, all kinds of different,
What's an
vitamins,
imponderable?
organs. Imponderable, that means like something that we have to capture, like X-ray. Okay. Um, we can capture radiation, those types of things that don't actually have a category, but we can still capture the vibration of that and create a homeopathic remedy from that in order to treat or address a symptom that kind of comes from that, which is the whole foundation of Hahnemann's idea about homeopathy, which is like treats like. Okay. So when we talk about classical homeopathy, like you were saying, Kelly, that's a single remedy, like belladonna at a 30C or, something like that. But complex formulations like Desbio has include, sometimes they can have 10, 20, 30, 40 different types of ingredients in there, all synergistic to the indication that that remedy is being prescribed for. So, phase remedies, the reason Desbio has the phase remedies is because Desbio's chief medical officer and chief medical practitioner Bruce Shelton, who is no longer with us, Dr. Shelton brought the idea of phase remedies directly from his involvement with the people that wrote this book, right? And explored homotoxicology in the sense of
Stop
trying to get
sharing
the
for a second so they
message
can
out there.
stop sharing screens so they
Oh,
can
okay.
see the book.
All
And then
right.
is the book in the resources?
I think it is, but let
I
me
mean, you're not going to want the book unless you do this medicine. First of all, it's expensive. And secondly, it's deep.
It is, boy. I've had this book for years. I've read it cover to cover probably over 100 times, but every single time I open it, still to this day, I learn something or I remember something, right?
Yep, yep, yep.
However, this book is called An Introduction to Bioregulatory Medicine. And the reason I wanted to at least show it is because inside this book, in the very center of it, you are going to find a graphical representation of the disease evolution table, which is the fundamental principle of what utilizing these phase remedies goes off of. Now, do you have to exactly know that? Do you have to know that piece of it? Well, Desbio has made it really simple. We have an indication sheet, and I'll show you that toward the end of the slideshow. And sometimes, we know that, well, BioLymph phase remedy, well, we know it's going to be given for certain things just because of the ingredients that are in it. But if you really kind of nerd out like I do and you really want to know everything it's for, what you do is you look specifically at each ingredient in the remedy, and then I go to my Materia Medica and look those exact ingredients up, and then all of a sudden a three-dimensional remedy turns into a universal remedy. Like everything just opens up, and I understand how impactful it really can be.
Because there's this really interweaving rather between looking at, like, when I created my nebulization kit,
Yes, yes.
we call them advantage kits, so it's an advantage for your lymph. And I just want to say, you said something about prescription, because we can't prescribe, obviously, a true wellness. So there's suggestions whenever we make suggestions with Desbios, and we give people an advantage. I look at vibrational medicine as information, but each one, there's 3 vials in each one, and I copied into each vial whatever, and there's always a phase, a glandular, and then a symptomatic relief, because you're looking at these different layers, and you just, like you say, create this more than like 12 dimensional, 27 dimensional layered piece of, like, looking at not only the body on every level, but then looking at this remedy to fit in like a puzzle piece to go, oh, this is going to get 7 layers, and then I'll take this one and this will get 7 layers. And if I'm wrong, homeopathic just wipes right out of the body. It doesn't hurt.
Right.
If I'm right.
Right. And now that you bring that up, I'm curious to get your opinion on this. So sometimes I'll say to myself, homeopathy isn't for 100% of the people 100% of the time. And what I mean by that is this. If I have a brand new patient and they have never, ever stepped foot into some type of medical approach like ours, and they have a sad diet, a standard American diet, and their emotions are all over the place, and maybe it's a female and she's having hormone problems, and maybe there's trauma there, and maybe there's all this stuff, right? She's stressed out all the time. She has bad cycles, and and on and on. And she's never, ever been grounded in the effects of what we all do. That may not be your person to begin utilizing this with. Now,
she froze there for a second. So while she comes back, what I would say to that is, actually, I start everyone with a drainage remedy of homeopathics, because it's a way to soften and open up those fields. So for me at the True Wellness Center, and what we do with our approach and on the Flow Forum, is we want to allow folks that opportunity.
Always cases that it could be. This medicine, at this point, they said medicine's powerful in that way.
Oh, it like, you froze for a while.
Oh,
I took over, and then all of a sudden when you came back on, it sped up a bunch. So you were saying that homeopathy isn't for everyone, and then you described the person that it might not be best for, and then what did you say?
And then I apologize. I'm not sure,
All good.
And then I said, Kelly, I'm really curious to your feelings on this, because that may not be the person you want to start this type of medicine with. It may be. You may have somebody that's ready for it. But many times what I see is this depth of medicine and understanding is for that person who woke up and said, whoa, I'm ready to transform at the deepest level, right? Because they can understand the cascade of body, mind, soul, body, mind, spirit that they're going to have to walk through on this medical journey. Does that make sense?
Oh gosh, I'm so glad you asked that. And it's so funny how it skipped out, and then, because it answered what your question was, that I didn't know what your question was right away. And at some point you'll have to go back and listen to the podcast.
Okay.
We don't really edit it. So here's what's funny about that. So what I said was, well, I'm exactly the opposite. I start everybody with homeopathics because I want them to start to soften. And what people come to us for is the thing that nobody else has dealt with, which is the terrain, which is the fascia, the lymph, and the emotional piece, which we are 90% emotional beings having a physical experience. So for me, the beauty of homeopathy and drainage remedies, and I use a lot of plant stem cell remedies as well, that educate and soften regardless of the person's consciousness, because I'm very keen to know that there's the 4 stages of learning, right? And you want to make sure you're matching that person and where they're at. If you don't know that, that's on our Flow Forum. But it's really important to understand that the the opportunity for us to go through those stages of learning, no matter where we start at, that for me, informational medicine has a piece everywhere because you want to at least get the field to start to soften while they're gaining consciousness over what's actually happening.
Absolutely.
That will make the impact to keep them coming back. If you don't use it, they won't get the change in their tissues. They won't feel different and they're not going to stick with the program.
Yeah.
That's been my experience in 19 years. So every
Yeah.
like I would tell you that 95 or better percent of the people start with a drainage kit
Yes. I
and
totally agree with that.
topical drainage remedies and doing
Yes.
my lymph work and getting a flow
Right.
vibe. Right, like like
Yes.
you gotta move your lymph, you gotta open up, and
Right.
let's take some homeopathics and let's take use some topicals to get that mobilization of the biggest phase, which is the ground substance of the body, to get the electricity flowing so the
Yes.
information can start to really mobilize now the orthomoleculars and the minerals and the vitamins and the things that are in more of a form in a material form because the information is set.
Yes. That's a absolutely. I am right with you on that, which brings up just the most beautiful point right here, and that is it is more than essential. It's more than necessary. It's more than need. We have to start in that place because look, the moment someone starts to demonstrate a symptom, whatever it is, the least symptom to the greatest symptom is the moment that their body said, detox isn't working. I can't drain it out. Nothing's moving. And all I'm doing is getting congested, right? That's the moment a symptom starts. So, what we have to do is recognize where to enter that and push it back across to a place where their bodies can detoxify and drain and mobilize. And that auto regulating system is now working again, right?
Oh,
That's
that's
part of the whole philosophy of homotoxicology, this auto-regulating system.
so let's spend a few minutes on the chart and then we'll
Okay,
go to part two where we can go a little deeper
wonderful.
diving into the pathophysiology.
Let me show you the chart here. All right, let me see if I can get to
Because
it.
when you said taking them through the stages, like they don't, I want them to see what stages we're taking them through because I really appreciate what you just said. And it's so true. I say that all the time, but it was very clear the way you said it. If you have a symptom, the body says, I can't detox anymore. My
Right.
drainage is overwhelmed. And that's why I became a
What?
lymph because it's about drainage, drainage, drainage. And what I
Right.
would say is no matter what the symptom is, go to drainage first and then see
Yes.
if you have anything left. Open up your drainage and see if you have anything left. Just facilitate your body's drainage.
Exactly. We have to get things mobilized. And
Yep.
so this is the disease evolution table that we talk about in the practice of homotoxicology. And as you can see on the far left side of the chart, we have the three embryological tissue layers, the ectoderm, the endoderm, and the mesoderm. So what we're talking about now is the tissue, the significance of layering connective tissue and fascia in the womb as a baby, right, is being knitted together. This is where hereditary, conditions come from, cellular mechanisms, hormones. This is even where mothers pass pathogens to their infant, right? To their fetus, whether it's candida or borrelia or whatever we're talking about here. How are we being knitted together? Because this is what we kind of stew in while we're in our mother's womb for 9 months. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, can we unpack this while we are knitted together?
Yes.
What do you mean by that? And what does that mean for genetics with what you're saying?
So I will have to say that when we have parents who are aware and awake, right? And on a path, it's obviously a little bit easier to make some transitions because that mother is already working on, her spiritual walk and the recognition of forgiveness for self, forgiveness of others, softening, coming to grips with a personal journey, stress management, love, righteousness, all those things. This is how we impact our fetuses when we're carrying them for 9 months, right? So once we have this child, we see a lot of children with carryover from their mothers, after they've been born. For instance, I used to formulate formula for Lyme babies, and we have babies that are full of yeast and fungus and, and things that are going on that we immediately have to address when this child is born. So we also know that there are genetic mechanisms that as we utilize this type of medicine, we actually have genetic changes with vibrational medicine and energetic medicine at the cellular level when we have someone who is able and ready to kind of step forward into their journey and understand what their reality is and what it's showing them and what their journey is about. Did that answer your question?
It did, and I'm going to
Go ahead.
kind of glare it back to me or you, and you stop me where I got it screwed up.
Okay.
I'm going to take the cough drop out of my mouth. Hold on, my throat was so dry, and I ran out of water in my room. So, okay. So the reason that it looks like genetics is because while we're in utero, if we have an unconscious parent guide, essentially,
Yes.
they're going to transmit the energetic things that predispose that symptomology right down the Lyme spirochetes.
Yes.
And the more aware the mom is, the less it gets embedded into the knitting as the child is being developed in the layers of the tissues of the ectodermal, endodermal, and mesodermal layers of the body. And those layers of the body then become your skin versus your organs versus your bones and that kind of stuff. So where it embeds into the fabric, and that knitting together that fabric, is the fascia piece of the body.
Yes.
That literally is the fabric of the body that holds this information.
Yes.
Then is accessed as signals of frequency when the body is looking for a clue. It's looking for a signal. It's looking for some gap to be filled, and it goes into the tissue to find it. And if it's an old epigenetic, I'm low self-esteem and I have pancreas issues and therefore I crave sugar and I'm going to create pre-diabetes because I'm going down that path, versus mom's cleaned up her thoughts. She realized she's worthy. She knows that life is supposed to be easy and joyful, and she can relax and recognize that. She's going to hone in her emotional eating. She's going to hone in her nutrition, and baby isn't going to absorb low self-esteem shit when it comes out.
Great way to put that. Yes, that's a great way. That's a great example.
It may have been
What you're talking about is unconsciousness at a fundamental level, right? I'll give you another for an example. A lot of my breast cancer patients, that's what they're dealing with. They've been dealing with generational trauma, generational cellular damage, generational epigenetic changes that now this woman is standing in that reality, and she doesn't even understand the 17 generations of trauma that came before her, right?
And not to play victim, not to go, oh my
No,
God.
not at all.
The reason I'm diagnosed with SIBO is because my grandmother was raped by my uncle. Like, no. Well, that would be weird and not
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's not to be a victim. It's to be conscious
right.
of what you're holding and the patterning
right.
you're holding.
And which is why I mentioned a little earlier, and honestly, both pieces have to be there. We have to start these people with drainage and organ remedies and cleansing remedies and mobilization remedies and connective tissue remedies and voltage catalysts, and all of these things are unconscious in this person's body. So we do this in layers, right? We have to be conscious of what is the system here? What's the benefit to practicing this type of medicine, right? We have to be able to understand their symptom profile and understand where it comes from, why it's there, and what your priorities are. Then we have to understand the goal that we want for these, patients. Where are we going with this?
Or
What
what they want. What I've learned is
Yes,
what
yeah,
they want. Help them
right,
accomplish their goal. Because
right.
trust me, y'all don't have the same goal that I have. I wish you did, but you don't.
True, true. And then we have to understand why the architecture is there and what that is trying to tell us. And that is where we talk about meeting that architecture and that form and that organization, because we first have to enter that, you know, on if the patient is unconscious, we'll have to enter that on a physical level. If the patient is mostly conscious, we can enter that on a mental, emotional, and spiritual level, right? So we're always looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're always looking at the architecture and the priority for that specific and unique patient presentation. And so that's kind of, some of the important things that we have to remember about this type of medical practice is the why, right? The why. Why are we using this approach versus any other, right? And so as you can see, there's your embryological tissue layers.
So
Kelly, beautiful job at explaining why that's there.
I'm gonna what's the word? Zoom in. I think I can
Oh,
do that.
okay.
If I zoom in, I think it zooms in for everybody. I could be
Ah,
wrong.
gotcha.
I
And
think
then,
now they can see it a little bit more. So now you got that top layer, it says ectoderm, and then
yep,
you've got, if you can look, that's on the left going down. So if you can
right.
read across and kind of explain the phases from
Yep.
that perspective.
So now what we're doing is that's one piece. Okay, now we're going to talk about the second priority, which um, is what phase that it's in. And so the first thing we have to do to use this table is identify the tissue layer. What layer is, and that just basically is looking at your symptom profile and what system is involved and what organ is involved. But remember, that's going to give you a valuable piece of information because we always have to utilize an organ remedy in our phase remedy for this to be effective, right? So that's part number one. As we move toward the right, you're going to see you're going to see 6 phases, 2 in each phase, okay? But so there are 3 general phases and they're broken down into an early and a late phase. So for example, the humoral phase, which is the first phase there. The humoral phase is really about our body being able to respond to a fever, or respond to a pathogen, or respond to a break in a bone, or respond to a UTI, but actually bring itself back into balance. So we're talking about naturalized homeostasis here. Our immune system, our auto-regulating system, and there's a number of things that fit into that, but our auto-regulating system is able to bring us back to a state that we can manage in health. So,
So we can regulate. So that's regulation.
yes, that's regulation. That's that humoral phase.
Yep.
If something isn't treated properly, it isn't diagnosed, it's diagnosed improperly, or just not addressed in a natural way. And when I say that word natural, meaning, we don't give it suppressive medications or pharmaceuticals. We don't do
We
something to
don't
just keep
allow.
pushing
We
it down.
allow versus force. Suppressive
Exactly.
versus
Yes.
allowing.
Right. All of our bodies have an innate ability to, bring itself
Heal.
back into homeostasis, regulate.
Self-healing bodies. We are not
Right.
autoimmune disease, although I would, that's a whole nother
Yeah.
podcast. Yeah.
So the next phase is the matrix phase. Now, you all have probably heard a ton by this point all about the extracellular matrix. Now, this is where the biggest understanding comes in disease progression. Okay, to understand that we can self-regulate all the way up to this bar, which is right in the middle. And when the body isn't addressed properly, it can't self-regulate anymore. Stress has gotten on top of it. Trauma is impacting it. Pathogens can't be wiped off. Your gut microbiome is wiped out. Your entire endocrine system is dysregulated. Your hypothalamus is, on and on and on. All of a sudden, it moves from connective tissue and fascia, which is typically where we are going to drain toxins and get rid of, foreign emotions and foreign substances. And this is where we want to stay in that regulatory phase so that our tissues and connective tissues and our voltage in our tissues continue to mobilize waste products into our eliminative organs, and we excrete those, right? However, when we don't do that properly, many things have the ability to continue to go deeper into the body's functioning. And so everything on this left-hand side is all about proper function. When the function is so broken that it doesn't function properly anymore, then we jump across this vicariation divide, and all of a sudden it is not only functional, now it's structural. Okay. And so our matrix doesn't respond to signals and cues to dump out toxins, to regulate the sleep-wake cycle, to regulate endocrine organ hormones, to respond to voltage cues and the cell wall rigidity, and all these happen in this matrix phase. And so that gives us another opportunity to actually put our finger on what's going on with our patient as far as their symptom report. And then so we have an opportunity again here. And then if we miss that, what happens is that the failure of understanding how significant this matrix phase is, then it goes into the de-differentiation phase, which now we're in the cellular phase, and we're both functionally and structurally downregulated. And all of a sudden, now a person's exhibiting some type of chronic issue,
So
disease,
and
damage.
I would explain that from a regulatory perspective, from like, I'm healthy to regulate in the first humoral phase, so I'm functionally ill in the matrix phase, but careful because if it crosses over this boundary and it gets intercellular, and
Right.
now you're dealing with impregnation phase, it's going into the cell, it's not just in the tissues, it's not just burdening the function of maybe some of the body, but it's actually working on the structure inside the cell that it's not able to, because structure people typically think of fascia and
Right.
function I think of organs, but this is a redirect. So
Right.
we're thinking about the ability of the body to function versus it's working on the architectural structure that's now damaged and going in the wrong direction to then the cellular phase, which is when I'm now in not just I'm functionally ill, but I'm going into disease state.
Right.
And now the de-differentiation is a cancerous state, right?
Yes, it is.
It's completely like the body is eating itself.
Right.
It's not, it's going to turn into fungus. And the beauty of this, and we're going to pause here, and those of you that are members of tier 2, you're going to hear more about this, but we're going to let them know where to find you and all that. But here's the beauty of all of this: we can turn it around no matter where we
Yes.
are, and it can go in any direction because it's not stuck. Everything flows when we understand this and know how to apply the science of energy. That's why at the True Wellness Center, it's called Held in Science of Energy, because we really just apply this science and we get amazing results every time. It's not about us, it's about the body heals itself.
Yes.
And as long as the person's compliant, you're going to get these results as long as you're willing to go through these phases and become conscious of it and learn through the 4 stages of learning where you're at as your practitioner is guiding you through this path until you get to the other side. And then you still have to do lymph because you live in a terrain of soup that they're still, up until now, still throwing aluminum at us and mercury when we breathe. And, it's a toxicant soup that we have out there in airborne, amongst many other things. So until we clean that up, we still have to work our lymph. But for me, that's preventing illness. And you got to work your lymph in any of these phases and all the phases and the fascia, because that's where the toxicants start to drive the disease into the body. And as you get the disease out of the body, you got to drain the swamp, and that's your swamp, the extracellular matrix, the ground substance.
Right. Absolutely. No matter how far or up, down, over it goes to the right of this chart, in order to bring anybody back into a healing state, you've got to go up, over. And so all of the levels that got you there, you're going to have to come back all the way through on the way back. Right.
But you don't have to suffer.
No, it's not about suffering. It's just
not about suffering. It's not about hurting.
Right.
It's not about, it's going to get worse before it's get better. Is
right.
that true? Yes. Not when you apply these rules.
Right.
So
it's just about understanding those levels and understanding how to pull people back through, and all the wiser when they are coming back through, because that's truly at the bottom of their healing journey.
That's right.
Yeah.
To turn them around, the tipping point bottom, to get them to go the other direction. Isn't it so fun what we get to do and explain everything?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, really, it's regenerative. This ecosystem, this organism, if you could stop sharing for a second, that'd be great until we get to the next part. This ecosystem, this organism, just wherever you are on this journey, just have gratitude for the fact that now you know. Maybe today this was the first time you ever heard homotoxicology. Maybe this is the first time you've ever heard me. I don't know. But wherever you fall on this journey, know that this is the best day of your life, because now you get to start to apply. Oh, here's a rabbit hole I get to fall down. I can figure some stuff out. It's very easy laid out. There's a lot of information, yes, but I can start to work through it. And I used to say, I wish somebody would write an instruction manual on how the body works. And I've taken what I've learned for 30 years and put into our membership, but it started with this chart. I live and breathe off of this chart, and I understand this chart. And with every client that I look at, I'm looking at where is it in the tissue and what phase are we in. And I'm a puzzle person. So it's like the JUCO chart, if you will. And I'm like, okay, and they're right here, and I want to move them over here. And you can do this. This is how you use all those technology, all those tools, all those programs and protocols that you've learned. When you start to understand this, you'll understand why they didn't go right, because you didn't apply this. You'll understand right thing, wrong time.
Yeah. Yes.
Dose too much. Drainage wasn't open. It got backed up. Like, everything becomes so explainable.
Yes.
And it's so satisfying is what I want to tell you. It's so great to be a client and a practitioner of this medicine, because you sit on the other side, and many of you deserve PhDs that are clients of this anyway.
Yeah.
You sit on the other side, you go, oh my, I hear it all the time. I'm sure you do too on my discovery calls, where I go, well, okay. Well, that's because of the scar, and then the dental, and that blocked that, and that's what you had this, and then you did this, and that's why, because when you were 7 and now when you're 72, and they're like, oh my God, how did all the pieces of the puzzle, it all makes sense. Yeah, because I just applied Reckowig's homotoxicology chart, and I could understand your journey in this 3D body of where you're at right now. And let's get you free of that. That's the point that I'm trying to get everybody at. What I would invite you all to, I should say, is I would like you to get out of the chain of the physical body, the cage of the physical body, the cage of your epigenetics, the cage of your astrology, the cage of your societal influence. Be a free, conscious, integrated, and aligned being, a true CIA agent. That's what we create. And that's what this medicine creates. And we can be free to speak of it now. And so today was a little bit longer podcast, but Pluto's in Aquarian now. Kennedys are here to say. I have a new YouTube channel called the Kelly Kennedy Wellness Channel. So please follow me there as well, because I'm going to be able to speak freely and openly on YouTube now, which is very exciting.
Good.
And Lisa, tell us where they can find you, meet you, and what you're up to and what you want them to know about that you're personally doing, if anything.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. Well, I still run a clinic. There's nothing like being in it every day. My clinic is called LifePoint Medical Consultants. And I also am a medical educator for Deseret Biologics, or Des Bio, as most people know it. You can reach out to Des Bio, become a practitioner, learn for yourself. There are hours of webinars on every topic you can imagine. You can find training on this particular type of medical paradigm. You can also find training on the foundations of detoxification and drainage. I mean, this is the cornerstone of someone being a healthy mind, body, spirit. We can't let one piece of it go, right? We are a totality. And George Vitulkas talks about this all the time, the totality of being. We can't separate our actions from our thoughts, from our being, it's all a conscious totality. And so the more that we can pull all of our fragments together in a totality, the healthier we're going to be, live, right, and be conscious for ourselves and for each other. So you can reach out to Des Bio at practitioner support at Des Bio. That's DESBIO.com. You can email me at Lisa Holt at DesBio.com. That's the easiest one. You can reach out to me personally at my clinic at lifepointaom@gmail.com. And get in touch if you have any questions. I am always the happiest when I get to talk about this. Happy to help.
She's the best. Thank you so much for this. And
You're
thank
welcome.
you all for sticking with us for this longer episode and for investing in yourself in this time and energy. And I'm excited for you to deep dive down this rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
Comment, let us know how you like the show, and share it if it resonates with you. And stick with us if you're a subscriber of the Energy Flow podcast and the Tier 1 or Tier 2 Energy Flow Forum, because we're going to go a little deeper dive into homotoxicology and how to apply some of this science and some of the other things we briefly talked about here. So looking forward to that. See you soon. Well, champions of the vibe flow community, energy flowing through that body, thank you for sharing this time with us and getting through the entire episode today. I know time is what we're spending here as our currency on this planet as people, and it really does mean a lot that as we devote our time and energy into creating this content, that you stuck with us throughout it. So if you would like more on this particular subject from this expert and get that free gift, make sure to register for our Energy Flow Forum. And you too, with a very nominal price, can access all sorts of upgraded content and deeper dives into the very subjects that you love: energy, fascia, lymphatics, oxygen, and water. As you know, as always, on this show and any content that we create, it is for your own health purposes. This is not intended to be advice or medical diagnoses or professional advice. It's purely information that if it resonates with you and you apply it and you upgrade, we love to hear about it. What a great coincidence, and we're happy to be on that journey with you. If this doesn't resonate with you and you know somebody it will, pass it along. And in the meantime, know that we truly are here to show you and explain to you and be with you through this lovely journey of life, and to share our experiences together and help each other upgrade, because that's how we're going to do this, together, collaborating with love at the center. I'm Kelly Kennedy, and I am so grateful from my heart to yours to share this time, energy, and space with you.